This is Ryan Abraham and Dan Weber, USCFootball.com. Instant analysis, Dan, here at the Clay Helton. Another press conference for a coach. Something happened on. It seems to happen every 6 months or so here at USC. But Clay Helton, the permanent head coach, signs a 5-year guaranteed contract, according to Pat Hayden. He volunteered that information. What do you think about the press conference?
Well, I think with everything that Clay's done since he's taken over, it was exactly right. He said all the right things. He said them in the right way. He's out of here now, looking at Stanford film. He has kind of had perfect pitch since taking this job over. I mean, just the way you bring in his family and his brother and his son, his wife. The fact that he was born, kind of to be a coach and knew, since the 8th grade. I think we just caught Pat a little bit after the press conference, and he talked about how maybe, people will disagree. He said people were absolutely going to disagree. Pat made it clear this was Pat's call all the way, and that he answered the question, how do you change the culture with a guy who's been here for 6 years? So that's a legitimate question that people can ask. But he said he did. I mean, they're playing physical football. They're running the ball. They're stopping they're doing the things that USC used to do and had stopped doing. And he said that was the connection that Clay made with a lot of great former Trojan football players who really went to bat for him. I think that made a big difference with Pat, was the people looking at this team and saying they're starting to remind us of how USC football used to be.
Yeah. The same thing happened 2 years ago. The Monday after the regular season, USC had a press conference announcing. Then it was Steve Sarkisian. Actually, a lot more people were at that press conference, but a few players we saw in the background. Players were pretty fired up for this one. Even last time, everyone's disappointed that Ed Orgeron wasn't the hire. Here, all the players at least, were excited that it was Clay Helton.
Yeah, I think that one you had the double hit. You had the letting Ed go and bringing Sark in. I think the bigger story, as it turned out, then was letting Ed go, or Ed leaving, than Sark being the hire. That was almost kind of an afterthought. And then they go to the bowl game, and Clay's the coach, and Sark's up in the press box, but they play so well, he's almost still the afterthought here. I think, the common thread there is, Clay Helton and what he did, we do his interim coach then, what he's done since he's been interim coach now. I mean, he's basically had a 7-week on-the-job interview, not just the 4-hour. Pat said he interviewed Clay 4 hours 2 to 3 weeks ago, and then he interviewed him again yesterday, and then he just said he's the right guy.
Are you surprised at all with the timing of this, 6 days before or 5 days before the Pac-12 championship game, and also the 5-year guaranteed contract for an interim head coach?
I think the 5-year deal, that was like, whoa. And when they just volunteered that, I said, wow, okay. Now, I think you could make the case that the amount of total dollars, let's say, that they will be paying Clay over that time, and unless, by that time they're winning national championships, would be about the same that one of the really high-profile guys would get in 2 years. So I think one of the real benefits of this is there becomes money to really pay top-notch assistant coaches. I don't think there's any question about that. As far as the timing, what I'm told is the first, we knew there was, starting Friday, there were too many meetings and too much going on here for something not to be happening. Yeah. It was a matter of when was it going to happen. It certainly sounds like it didn't happen by the conference call last night. If Clay said, he didn't tell his wife, and we had people talking to people in the family, and they seemed to not know. So if she learned at 1 o'clock in the morning, the first they could tell anybody was the team meeting at 7:30 this morning. So that was going to be the first time they told anybody, and the first time they could, they said once we decided we were going to go ahead and do it. And Pat decided yesterday. I don't know that he felt like he had to decide yesterday, but that's what he did. And they just said, we're just going to put it out there as soon as we decide, as soon as we tell the team, that's the deal. So I don't think it was calculated.
Yeah. One of the weird things is when you hire a head coach, usually you have 6, 7, 8 months before any kind of results are known. Patty's going to know within 6 days what's going on with Clay Helton because they got to play the Pac-12 championship game now.
Well, and this is where you're rolling the dice because they're not favored to win that game. They may not be favored in their bowl game, and they may not be favored in the Alabama game. I mean, he may be.
They could be 5-5 under Clay Helton. That's kind of bad. Well, not that wouldn't be good.
Although, as Clay said, and you got to believe him, he said, "Man, is that going to be fun? This is great." I mean, his attitude, I think, has to be the attitude of a USC program. How cool is this? We get to play Stanford. We get to play somebody in a bowl game. Maybe if we're really lucky, you get to go to the Rose Bowl. Maybe we get, Ohio State. Great. And then we get Alabama. That has to be, if you're going to do it right at USC, that has to be your attitude at USC. If that's not your attitude, you're not right for USC. And that hasn't been the attitude exactly. And I don't think Clay's kidding around. That's his attitude.
Yeah. One last thing, staff changes. Doesn't look like there's going to be anything right now, kind of an evaluation period after the season.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. There's no way you've got guys who, you've got to really depend on this week, and they're coaching for their jobs, and that's the way it should be. You don't want Clay spending any time this week thinking about who's going to be this or who's going to be that for next year. You want him thinking about Stanford and nothing else but Stanford at that point. And you maybe, you've got enough time, and I'm sure in the back of it, and I'm sure when he talked to Pat, he's got some ideas, but you don't want that out there. You're one down kind of already with Clay being the head coach. You're kind of one down in terms of coaching staff already. So you really don't need guys thinking about where they're going to be next year. They're here this week, and that's pretty much. I mean, I'm glad he didn't even go into that at all.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up here from another USC coaching press conference. Hopefully we won't have none of these for quite a while, but they've come fairly often, Dan. We'll see what happens. We're going to be out of practice tomorrow, and of course, you got one last thing?
Well, the downside is not only do you have the hiring press conference, you have the firing press conference, so we double up. Not only do they come too quickly, they come in pairs.
They do.
And let's hope that we break that precedent at this point.
If you see us talking in front of this wall, something strange or big has happened. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up. We'll be at practice all week, and of course, the Pac-12 championship game on Saturday. For Dan Weber, this is Ryan Abraham. Check out uscfootball.com for more.